Chosen one, God is rewarding you with a power the world has never seen before. Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in history when words are not merely spoken, they are released. Moments when a message does not come to inform the mind but to awaken the soul. Today is one of those moments. What you are about to hear is not designed for casual listening, nor is it meant for the comfortable or the complacent. It is meant for those who have felt a quiet stirring within themselves, a deep knowing they could never fully explain, yet could never escape. Ladies and gentlemen, there exists a group of people who have walked through life feeling different, set apart without being told why. They were not handed easy paths. They were not given shortcuts. Instead, they were led through pressure, isolation, misunderstanding, and seasons of silence that tested their faith, identity, and endurance. These individuals often questioned why life demanded so much from them while offering so little in return. But what they could not see at the time was that they were being prepared, not punished. We live in a world that celebrates visibility, noise, and instant success. Yet the greatest transformations often occur in the unseen, in the hidden places where character is forged and inner strength is refined. The world measures power by titles, applause, and influence, but there is a higher order of power, one that does not rely on external validation. It is a power that is cultivated internally, shaped by endurance, and activated by faith. And this is the power we are here to speak about today. Ladies and gentlemen, some of you in this room have survived battles that never made headlines. You endured betrayals that forced you to grow beyond your years. You carried responsibilities that shaped your spirit long before your time. You learned to stand alone when support vanished, and to trust when evidence was absent. What seemed like delay was actually divine timing. What felt like loss was, in truth, alignment. This gathering is not accidental. You did not stumble into this moment by chance. There is a reason this message is reaching you now. Something is shifting, a season is closing, and another is unfolding. One marked not by struggle, but by authority, not by striving, but by alignment. What was hidden is beginning to surface. What was planted in silence is preparing to bear visible fruit. Ladies and gentlemen, today we speak to the chosen ones, those who are refined through fire and strengthened through waiting. We speak to those who remained faithful when quitting seemed reasonable, who believed when logic offered no support. A reward is approaching, but not in the way the world understands reward. It is not merely a blessing, it is a power that the world has never seen before, because it does not come from ambition, force, or fear. It comes from inner certainty, spiritual authority, and divine alignment. As we move forward, listen not just with your ears, but with your spirit. What you are about to receive may not change what you see immediately, but it will change who you are being. And once that changes, everything else must follow. The selection you experienced was never meant to be obvious. If God had marked you publicly from the beginning, interference would have followed. So instead, the choosing happened quietly, invisibly, far away from applause and recognition. While others were being celebrated, you were being separated. While others were climbing socially, you were descending spiritually into deeper awareness, stronger discipline, and sharper discernment. This is how divine selection works. It bypasses popularity and goes straight to potential. From the outside, your life may have appeared ordinary or even unstable. People may have underestimated you, overlooked you, or misunderstood your journey. Some may have questioned your worth because you didn't fit the familiar molds of success. But God never selects based on visibility. He selects based on capacity. Capacity to endure pressure without losing integrity. Capacity to carry responsibility without becoming corrupt. Capacity to hold power without abusing it. This is why your path felt lonely. Social approval was never your qualification. You were being trained to stand without leaning on validation. You were taught through experience that applause is temporary, but inner authority is permanent. While others needed constant reassurance, you were learning to move by inner conviction. That alone disqualifies you from normal social categories. God's choosing is not democratic. It does not consult trends, crowds, or consensus. It is spiritual law responding to inner alignment. When your heart stayed sincere through confusion, when your faith remained intact under disappointment, when your character held firm in seasons of loss, something invisible was being recorded. Heaven was watching how you handled obscurity. You may have noticed that doors closed unexpectedly, relationships fell apart without warning, and opportunities slipped away even when you had done everything right. That was not rejection, it was redirection. God was removing you from spaces that could not support what you were becoming. Social circles that thrived on ego, environments addicted to comparison, and systems built on compromise would have diluted your calling. So you were withdrawn, not because you were unworthy, but because you were incompatible with mediocrity. This selection required separation, not isolation for punishment, but isolation for calibration. In quiet seasons, your inner voice grew louder. You learned to hear guidance without external confirmation. You discovered truth without consensus. That is dangerous to systems built on control, which is why your development had to happen privately. True authority does not announce itself while forming. The world selects based on appearance. God selects based on endurance. Anyone can shine when conditions are favorable, but few remain faithful when the environment offers nothing. You stayed, you waited, you endured unanswered questions without abandoning your integrity. That endurance was not unnoticed. It was the very reason you were chosen. People often assume chosen ones are privileged. In reality, they are pressured. They face internal battles others never encounter because they are required to master themselves before influencing anything else. You were forced to confront your fears, heal your wounds, and dismantle false identities early. Social comfort would have delayed that process. So it was removed. You may have wondered why you never fully belonged anywhere, why you could adapt but never assimilate, why you could connect but never depend. That is the mark of spiritual selection. You were designed to influence environments, not be absorbed by them. God does not choose those who blend in. He chooses those who remain distinct without becoming arrogant. This is also why imitation never satisfied you. You tried following examples that worked for others, but they felt unnatural to you. Their paths produced strain instead of flow. That discomfort was a signal. You were not meant to copy success, you were meant to originate it. Social templates could never contain what was forming within you. Your selection bypassed hierarchy. You were not elevated through connections or endorsements. You were shaped through adversity. Every setback refined your discernment. Every misunderstanding sharpened your perception. Every delay strengthened your patience. These were not accidents, they were credentials being earned silently. God did not choose you because you were flawless. He chose you because you were teachable. Because when correction came, you adjusted. When truth confronted you, you listened. When growth required surrender, you released. That flexibility is rare and essential. Power cannot rest on a rigid soul. You also learned restraint. While others reacted impulsively, you learned to pause. While others sought revenge, you learned detachment. While others chased validation, you learned alignment. These are not social traits, they are spiritual disciplines, and they prepared you to carry influence without being consumed by ego. Now, as this season shifts, something is becoming clear. Your difference was intentional. The lack of early recognition preserved you. The absence of applause protected you. The delays prevented distortion. If success had come too soon, it might have defined you instead of serving you. This is why God's selection rarely makes sense at first. It is not meant to. It unfolds in layers, revealed only when the vessel is ready. And now you are ready. Not because the world finally sees you, but because you no longer need it to. What was done in secret is beginning to surface, not as noise, but as presence, not as explanation, but as evidence. People will sense something about you they cannot name. They will feel authority without intimidation, confidence without arrogance, clarity without aggression. That is the signature of divine selection. You were chosen beyond social systems, beyond human approval, beyond surface level metrics. And that is precisely why what's coming next will not require permission. You were trained to stand alone, so that when you stand visible, you remain unshaken. What you endured was never random. Every wound, every disappointment, every season that pushed you to the edge was carefully permitted. not to weaken you, but to awaken what was dormant within you. Pain was not sent to destroy you, it was allowed to train you. There is a kind of power that cannot be taught through comfort, and there is an authority that only emerges when the soul has been tested under pressure. You were being conditioned for something greater than relief. You were being prepared for activation. Most people collapse under hardship because they resist it. You learned to move through it. You cried when you needed to, questioned when you had to, but you did not abandon your inner alignment. That alone separates you. Pain forced you inward, where surface level identities could no longer survive. Titles fell away, labels lost meaning. What remained was essence, and essence is what God trains. Every betrayal sharpened your discernment. You learned the difference between words and intentions, between appearances and truth. Where others became bitter, you became observant. You stopped assuming everyone meant well. You learned to read energy, to sense shifts, to recognize silence as information. That awareness was not accidental. A chosen one cannot afford blindness. Power requires perception. Disappointment trained your patience. There were moments when you did everything right and still received nothing in return. You waited without answers, trusted without signs, and continued without guarantees. That waiting strengthened your inner authority. It taught you that movement does not require immediate reward. It taught you that faith is not proven by speed, but by steadiness. Loss dismantled your attachments. Things you once believed you needed were removed. Relationships, opportunities, identities, some fell apart without explanation. At the time, it felt cruel. But in truth, anything you clung to too tightly would have compromised the power being formed within you. God cannot entrust authority to someone enslaved by dependency. So you were taught how to let go without collapsing. Isolation trained your self-govern. Ants. When external support faded, you learned how to regulate your thoughts, your emotions, and your reactions. You became your own anchor. You discovered that peace is not something the world gives, it is something you generate. That inner stability is rare, and it is essential for anyone called to carry influence without being controlled by it. Your pain also refined your humility. You learned empathy not as a concept but as a lived reality. You understand suffering without judgment. You can sit with others in silence without trying to fix them. That depth is not learned through success, it is forged through struggle, and it makes your power safe. Frustration trained your discipline. When outcomes delayed, you attempted to compromise, to rush, to settle, but something within you refused to betray your integrity for temporary relief. That restraint built strength. It taught you that timing matters and that premature action can sabotage divine outcomes. There were moments when you questioned yourself deeply, when confidence dipped, when identity felt unstable. Those moments were not failures, they were purifications. False confidence had to die so that true certainty could emerge. Arrogance could not survive your training. Only grounded self-awareness remained. Your nervous system itself was trained. Under prolonged stress, you learned calm. Under uncertainty, you learned presence. Under pressure, you learned focus. These are not emotional traits, they are operational capacities. They allow you to function clearly where others panic. That composure is power. You also learn to forgive, not because others deserved it, but because resentment would have contaminated your authority. Holding grudges would have tethered you to the past. So you released without reconciliation, healed without closure, and moved forward without apology. That emotional independence strengthened your inner command. Every time you were underestimated, your ego was stripped. You stopped performing. You stopped announcing. You stopped seeking validation. That quietness was not weakness, it was consolidation. Energy once wasted on proving yourself was redirected inward, where it multiplied. Your pain taught you how to listen to yourself, to silence, to subtle guidance. You became sensitive to inner signals that others ignore. Intuition sharpened, discernment deepened. You learned when to move and when to wait, when to speak and when to remain still. That timing awareness is part of your power. Even your failures were instructors. They taught you accountability without self-condemnation. You learned to correct course without collapsing. to extract wisdom without drowning in regret. That resilience makes you adaptable, and adaptability is essential for anyone entrusted with influence. Now, as you stand on the threshold of release, understand this clearly. The power awakening in you was earned, not through perfection, but through endurance, not through privilege, but rough persistence. Your pain was not wasted, it was converted. What once threatened to break you now serves you. The sensitivity you developed becomes discernment. The caution you learned becomes wisdom. The strength you built becomes authority. The compassion you gain becomes leadership. You are no longer reactive. You are responsive. You are no longer fragile. You are flexible. You are no longer desperate. You are deliberate. These are the marks of someone trained by experience, not theory. The world may never know the cost of what you carry. They will see the results without understanding the process. They will admire the power without recognizing the pain that forged it. That is fine. This was never about recognition. It was about readiness. Your pain was not the end of your story. It was the beginning of your empowerment. What God is releasing in you now is not something the world can measure, display, or immediately recognize. It is not an external badge, a public title, or a visible trophy. It is far more potent and far more dangerous to systems built on control. This power is internal. It operates at the level of consciousness, belief, and assumption. It is the kind of authority that reshapes reality not by force, but by state of being. You were never meant to dominate through aggression. You were trained to influence through alignment. Long before circumstances began to shift, your inner world was being disciplined. You were taught, often through necessity, hope, to govern your thoughts, regulate your emotions, and direct your attention. These are not self-help habits, they are spiritual technologies. Whoever controls their inner state controls their experience. This is why you had to master yourself before mastering outcomes. External power without internal command collapses. Influence without self-governance corrupts. So God delayed visibility while strengthening your inner authority. You learned how to remain calm when provoked, focused when distracted, and steady when uncertain. That composure is not personality, it is power. The world teaches people to react. You learned how to assume. You discovered that what you consistently occupy internally eventually expresses itself externally. When fear was presented, you learned to choose trust. When doubt appeared, you learned to return to certainty. When chaos surrounded you, you learned to stabilize within. That inner decision-making trained your consciousness to lead rather than follow. This power works quietly. It does not announce intentions or demand recognition. It simply enters a state and allows the environment to reorganize itself accordingly. People around you may notice that things resolve themselves in your favor without obvious effort. Opportunities align, conflicts dissolve, resistance softens. This is not luck, it is coherence. When your inner world becomes ordered, the outer world mirrors it. You were taught patience not as passivity, but as control. You learned that rushing comes from insecurity, and waiting comes from confidence. That shift alone marks the activation of internal authority. You no longer feel compelled to chase, prove, or force. You know that movement from certainty carries weight, while movement from anxiety creates friction. Your belief system itself has been refined. False narratives were dismantled. Ideas about unworthiness, limitation, or dependency. These beliefs could not coexist with the power being formed within you, so they were challenged through experience until they lost credibility. What remains now is not blind optimism, but grounded expectation. This internal power also grants you command over attention. You choose what you focus on, and therefore what grows. You no longer feed anxiety with obsession or scarcity with fixation. You redirect awareness intentionally. That ability may seem subtle, but it is foundational. Attention is energy. Where it goes, outcomes follow. You have also learned detachment without indifference. You care deeply, but you are no longer controlled by outcomes. You participate without clinging. You desire without desperation. That balance keeps your energy clean. It prevents distortion. It allows manifestation without resistance. This power does not eliminate challenges. It neutralizes their authority. Problems may still appear, but they do not destabilize you. You meet them with presence rather than panic. Solutions arise because your state invites them. This is the difference between effort and authority. Effort strains, authority aligns. You are now capable of holding intention without tension. That capacity took time to develop. Earlier in your journey, wanting something may have created anxiety. Now, desire feels calm, expectation feels natural. That shift indicates readiness. When wanting no longer disturbs peace, power is safe to release. Your inner dialogue has also changed. You speak to yourself with clarity instead of criticism. You correct without condemning. You affirm without exaggerating. That internal language programs your nervous system and informs your decisions. Power begins there. You were trained to trust unseen movement. When nothing seemed to be happening externally, you learned to remain internally consistent. That faith stabilized your consciousness. It taught you that delay does not mean denial. It often means alignment is still completing. This internal authority also protects you from manipulation. You are less reactive to emotional triggers, less susceptible to pressure, less dependent on approval. That autonomy makes you unpredictable to systems that rely on control. You cannot be rushed, shamed, or coerced easily. That is power. You no longer seek control over people. You seek coherence within yourself. Ironically, that self-mastery increases your influence naturally. People sense clarity, they trust stability, they respond to presence. You do not need to dominate to lead. This power cannot be stolen because it was cultivated, not granted. It cannot be replicated because it was earned through lived experience. It cannot be revoked because it does not depend on circumstance. It is rooted in identity. As this authority continues to mature, you will notice a shift in how life responds to you. Doors open with less resistance. Decisions feel clearer. Outcomes align more smoothly, not because the world changed, but because you did. This is the reward, not spectacle, but sovereignty, not noise, but command, not external control, but internal dominion. What is being released through you does not fit into existing categories. It cannot be named properly, classified neatly, or contained within familiar systems. The world depends on labels to understand and control what it encounters, but what you carry refuses simplification. That is why people sense it before they understand it. It unsettles assumptions. It disrupts expectations. It exposes illusions without confrontation. You were never designed to operate within rigid frameworks. From the beginning, you felt constrained by conventional paths. Structures that worked for others felt suffocating to you. Rules that promised security felt limiting. This wasn't rebellion, it was incompatibility. You carry something that evolves environments rather than conforms to them. The systems of the world are built on predictability. They function by training people to respond in expected ways. What makes your presence disruptive is not aggression, but unpower, predictability rooted in inner alignment. You don't move from impulse or conditioning, you move from awareness. That awareness cannot be programmed. When you enter spaces, you subtly change the atmosphere. Conversations shift, priorities rearrange, tensions surface or dissolve. Not because you are forcing change, but because coherence reveals distortion. Systems built on pretense struggle in the presence of authenticity. This is why some people feel uncomfortable around you without knowing why. You challenge identities without saying a word. You reflect truths others are avoiding. You remind people of possibilities they have suppressed. That silent mirror effect is threatening to ego-based structures. The world prefers power that is visible and hierarchical. Your power is lateral and internal. It doesn't dominate from above, it permeates from within. That makes it difficult to oppose. You don't fight systems, you outgrow them. And in doing so, you render certain rules obsolete. You were trained to see through appearances. You recognize patterns beneath behavior, motives beneath words, and fear beneath control. That perception allows you to navigate systems without being absorbed by them. You understand how things work without becoming dependent on them. This power also resists commodification. It cannot be packaged or sold easily. It does not rely on branding or performance. That frustrates environments built on consumption and comparison. You are not motivated by status. Status cannot control you. You operate from inner permission. That alone dissolves many barriers. Systems depend on people seeking approval. You learn to move without it. That freedom makes you disruptive, not because you break rules intentionally, but because you are not governed by fear of consequence. Your presence reveals inefficiencies. Processes that once seemed normal begin to feel unnecessary. Conversations that once felt acceptable feel shallow. People begin to question routines they never examined before. That questioning is the beginning of transformation. This is also why resistance appears. Not everyone welcomes exposure. Not every environment wants evolution. Some systems will attempt to dismiss, minimize, or misunderstand you. That is not personal, it is structural. You represent change they did not choose. You do not need to announce disruption. It happens organically. Your decisions set new precedents. Your boundaries redefine norms. Your standards elevate expectations. Others begin to adjust simply by observing. The power you carry does not seek replacement. It seeks realignment. It does not destroy systems. It reveals whether they can adapt. Those that can will evolve. Those that cannot will fade. You have learned to remain grounded amid misunderstanding. You no longer require agreement to proceed. You are comfortable being misread. That emotional independence allows your influence to remain clean. You don't argue truth, you embody it. Your influence travels through example, not enforcement. People may not follow your words, but they observe your outcomes. They notice consistency. They notice clarity. They notice peace under pressure. That evidence speaks louder than persuasion. The world has not seen this kind of power widely because it requires inner work most avoid. It requires responsibility without reward, integrity without recognition, and alignment without applause. Few are willing to endure that path. You are willing. That is why what flows through you now cannot be managed by outdated frameworks. It will inspire new models, new ways of being, new standards of leadership, not through revolution, but through resonance. You do not fit because you are not meant to. You are meant to expand the definition of what is possible. Where you stand, old rules weaken, new possibilities emerge, and the shift happens quietly, one aligned presence at a time. What was hidden is no longer meant to remain unseen. There comes a point when preparation completes and evidence must follow, not to impress others, not to validate the journey, but to confirm alignment. You are entering a season where internal shifts begin to express themselves outwardly, naturally, consistently, and without strain. This is not performance, this is overflow. For a long time, your growth occurred beneath the surface. Changes were internal, beliefs restructuring, perception sharpening, identity stabilizing. From the outside, it may have looked like nothing was happening. But internally, everything was being rearranged. Now the inner order is established, and the outer world must respond. This is how manifestation works when it is mature. It does not arrive with chaos or urgency. It unfolds with calm certainty. Opportunities align without desperation. Decisions feel obvious rather than forced. Movement feels timely instead of rushed. That ease is not coincidence, it is coherence. You will notice that what once required effort now responds to presence. Doors open with fewer obstacles. Conversations resolve themselves. Resources appear at the moment they are needed. This is not because you are trying harder. It is because you are no longer misaligned. Resistance dissolves when intention and identity agree. Visibility will increase, but it will not disturb your peace. Earlier in your journey, attention might have triggered insecurity or self-doubt. Now it feels neutral. You are no longer performing, you are expressing. That shift allows recognition without distortion. People will begin to acknowledge what they once overlooked. Some will act as if they always believed in you. Others will quietly adjust their behavior. You do not need to correct the record. Validation is no longer your currency. Evidence speaks for itself. Your alignment produces consistency, not dramatic highs and lows, but steady progression. That reliability builds trust. Others sense stability and respond accordingly. Influence grows organically when it is not pursued. You will also notice that things which once drained you no longer have access. Certain conflicts lose energy. Certain people fall away naturally. Certain habits lose appeal. This is not loss, it is refinement. What no longer matches your state cannot remain. Your intuition becomes more precise. You recognize timing instinctively. You know when to act and when to wait without overthinking. That clarity reduces friction. You conserve energy. You move efficiently. The outer world begins to mirror your inner boundaries. Where you are clear, life responds clearly. Where you are firm, circumstances adjust. Where you are calm, situations stabilize. This feedback loop confirms your authority. This season is marked by confirmation, not explanation. You will not feel compelled to justify your decisions. You will not over-communicate. You will not chase understanding. You move, and outcomes follow. Some will be inspired by what they see. Others will feel uncomfortable. Both reactions are reflections, not responsibilities. You are not here to manage responses. You are here to remain aligned. What becomes visible is not just success, it is integrity in motion. Your values express themselves through results. Your discipline becomes evident through consistency. Your faith becomes tangible through timing. This is the reward of alignment, life cooperating instead of resisting. Not perfection, but flow. Not absence of challenge, but confidence in navigation. You will find yourself in positions you once imagined quietly. The difference now is that arrival feels normal. There is no shock, no disbelief. That emotional neutrality signals readiness. When blessings no longer overwhelm you, they can stay. You are also prepared for responsibility. Visibility brings influence, and influence requires restraint. You have learned when to speak and when to remain silent, when to act and when to observe. That discernment protects what is being built. The pace will feel sustainable. No burnout, no frantic expansion. Growth will match capacity. That balance ensures longevity. Your inner alignment also attracts aligned collaborators. Connections form without manipulation. Partnerships feel mutual rather than transactional. You recognize resonance immediately. This season is not about proving others wrong. It is about confirming truth within yourself. External results are simply the echo. What was hidden had to mature without interference. Now it is ready to be seen without distortion. Not everyone will understand the journey. They don't need to. The evidence will speak in ways words never could. You are not stepping into something new. You are allowing what has already formed to finally express itself.